Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Does anyone have a horrible coworker story? If not, a work story will suffice. Several years ago, I worked as a research technician. The workbenches were set up like me, my bench, shelves, clumsy a-hole's bench, CA. So CA is working on a procedure in which he is basically washing a radioactive isotope off a piece of nylon Southern blot wash. He has a shield set up between him and the work and another set up behind that, but it's just a wall barrier. It's not a self-contained box. He has a Geiger counter to scan the blot to see when it's clean, and I hear it picking up background radiation. Tick, 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 tick. I'm minding my own business, working away at my bench. Then, simultaneously, three things happen. 1. CA says, oops. 2. Geiger counter says, tick, 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 scree. 3. A thick, soapy liquid comes rushing under the shelves across my bench over the edge, soaks the shins of my pants, and gets in my shoes. It was only 32p, so it wasn't a big deal, but still, F, dude, it's on my clothes. I had to leave my pants, socks, and shoes at the lab to cool off for a few weeks, and I had to go home barefoot. His feet were 3 sizes smaller than mine, or he would have gone home barefoot. Fortunately, I had my gym clothes there, so I had some shorts at least. A few years back, I worked at Blockbuster. About a year into it, we got a girl named Lucy, fake name. Lucy had to easily be 300 pounds. She would share information about her life with us repeatedly and always stuck to it. Here are her tales. She recently lost 400 pounds. She used to be in the military doing black ops and was transported by submarine. This is before she lost the weight. On the Black Ops job, she got shot because the Marines protecting her didn't do their job. She would show us her scars from where she got shot stomach all the time at work by lifting her shirt. They looked like she got her appendix removed. Because of this, she no longer could burp without dying, so she couldn't drink carbonation of any sort. She was fluent in Arabic. We had a regular military customer who knew Arabic and would insult her all the time. She never knew what he said. We also had another employee studying Arabic, and he would write insults at her in Arabic on a board in the back. She never knew what those said as well. She claims to only have 5% body fat because she bikes around all the time. Once she ate at Carrabba's and got food poisoning. In the lawsuit, she settled for an all-you-can-eat for life card to the restaurant. However, she never uses it and lost it because, well, why would I eat there? I got food poisoning. On her first day, she was late to work because she was biking to work and passed out in a bush from the change in altitude. She moved to us in Utah from Illinois. She has her PhD in philosophy. She came to Utah because the first presidency of the LDS Church, Mormons, came to her and personally asked her to come teach as a visiting professor at BYU. Our store manager was selling his car. It was a POS. The store manager told Lucy, who was looking to buy a car, that she could test drive it and told her all the problems with it. For $500, she could have it as is. She bought it and then immediately tried to return it. The store manager wouldn't do it. So Lucy found the district manager's number and called him to complain. The district manager chewed out our store manager, not for the car thing, but for letting crazy Lucy find out what his number was, and she was never to call him again. At Blockbuster, we can only look at the inventory of our own store. To find out if another store carries a movie, we have to call them. My first time working with Lucy, she asked me why I didn't just look up why another store had a title rather than calling them. I explained, and she told me that you could look it up. However, since I didn't know about it, she said something I probably wasn't supposed to know about and wouldn't tell me how to do it. I ended up calling every neighboring store to talk to managers to see if any of them knew how to look up other stores' inventories. I soon learned to not believe anything Lucy says. She would openly insult most customers. It got to the point where I would take customers outside when they tried to complain about her. I would tell the customers to file a formal complaint so we can fire this girl. Then I would go inside and tell Lucy that I had smoothed things over and try to be nicer next time. I would bike to work year-round in Utah. I am hardcore. And my bike seat broke. Lucy claimed to be a master with bikes and could get free parts, 5% body fat from extensive biking and eating. This was before I knew how full of it she was. She took my seat post and seat home with her. Many months later, she was leaving us for SLC, see below, and I still didn't have my bike stuff, nor was it fixed. I was scared to go to her house, so I waited until a coworker was giving her a ride home and called him and had him get it back for me. He said it was awkward. I would put a happy ending on it. I know there are way more stories, but it has been a while. After being with us for far too long, we finally got rid of her. This happened because she was moving to Salt Lake City to live in assisted housing, her words, so who knows. She transferred to a Blockbuster up there because it is almost impossible to get fired from Blockbuster. We neglected to tell the SLC Blockbuster how crazy she was because we didn't want them backing out and us still getting stuck with her. Jeremy. Let me tell you about Jeremy. He was a programmer I worked with for just a few months in video games. It was a small startup during the .com days. It was an optimistic but directionless place to work. The owner had just gotten his inheritance, hired some people, and expected them to churn out a product that would make him rich. He gave himself all the leadership titles like producer, developer, designer, and played other video games all day long. Jeremy was a programmer that had his master's in business and a few years' work experience by the time he was 19. He had already been married for 2 years. Any chance for finding his way socially in the world was long removed. At a conference, he packed a shoulder bag on the plane with a baguette, water bottle, and a massive encyclopedia-sized book to read. This was a bit odd for a plane ride, but once we got to baggage claim, he had no bag. All of his clothes were crammed under bread in a small shoulder bag. This was what he was wearing to represent a small startup for an entire week. We started a company bowling night. Some of us sucked, but at least had the concept. Basic bowling is not too tough of a concept. If you hit a pin, you score points. We set up and put everyone's name down for a game, including Jeremy. Instead of crowding around the normal area, Jeremy sat in a high-traffic area by the stacks of bowling balls in a chair reading a tome of Greek mythology with his ball under his chair. When it was his turn and we got his attention, he did the unimaginable. He dropped his book, grabbed his ball, and leapt from his chair in one fluid motion. Running 15 feet to the lane, he hucked the ball to his shoulder and with all his might, shot-put the bowling ball down the lane. It hit an advertisement hanging from the freaking ceiling, rebounded the opposite direction, and landed with a solid thud on the opposite lane that someone else was trying to use. It was so loud that the entire bowling alley came to a sudden stop. Jeremy had chosen his ball with one thing in mind: the heaviest. We had to cover for him, apologize, and talk our way out of not getting the entire group kicked out. It seems they didn't want to believe anyone could be so stupid and wanted to believe that he was a malicious a-hole. We had to convince the owner that we could vouch for his character and that he was indeed stupid, but we were indeed in charge of his education, not verbatim. He couldn't handle getting to work on time, living just a few blocks from work. He did calculate the time it takes to cross the average city block, and when he found a high-rise apartment in downtown Chicago, he decided he could still make it to the burbs easily. This led to him often getting to work at the same time others were leaving for lunch. I was asked to help him move. Everything he owned was covered in crumbs or cheese. It looked like a hovel. He managed to wreck the moving van twice that day. Now, with him commuting every day, he soon got into a massive car wreck. No one was hurt, but 5 cars were totaled. His car was a lease. This led to him taking the bus to work. The bus stopped at the mall only a mile away. Because of bad planning, it was at least a 3-mile walk around gated areas and an interstate crosswalk. This was bad for someone that would be out of breath just walking to the bathroom. He would show up out of breath and sweat-drenched. One day, he decided to take a shortcut across the interstate. I frickin' 90 during rush hour. Each side with 6 lanes of traffic, 12 lanes of bumper-to-bumper interstate. I can only go off of what he told me. He made it barely. People narrowly avoiding him and almost getting into wrecks across all 12 lanes. Once across, he had to climb over a barbed wire fence. He got stuck. He couldn't do it. So he turned back and crossed all 12 lanes again. One time, the boss wanted us to take a half day in Bond. He really just wanted someone to play games with so bad that he was willing to pay us to do it. He took us to Dave & Buster's in downtown Chicago because they had virtual reality mech warriors. The Dave & Buster's a mile away wasn't good enough. Our path took us through Cabrini Green. This was the worst project in the US. It's been since torn down, but to get an idea of what it's like, watch the movie Candyman. Most people see a place that city services such as a garbage man would abandon, think, I'm gonna roll up the windows, not make eye contact, and drive through here as quickly as possible. Not Jeremy. He sees a sign on the front door saying metal detector in use and decides to put it to the test. He parks his convertible cabriolet, walks to the front door despite people who live there watching him, and dangles his car keys seeing if it will set off the metal detector. Chubby white guy parks his car in front of the entrance of the worst projects in the country and dangles his effing car keys in front of the natives' F! This was the guy making our programming backbone. He was so difficult to work with that no code ever got finished. His hygiene was so bad that the other programmers wanted to work in the art department and crowded us. We started massive Nerf Wars in the office. Everyone had their own guns and ammo type. I had the massive crossbow, one guy had the Gatling gun, etc. It would usually start semi-spontaneously in the afternoon and go on for 15 to 20 minutes. We would gather ammo and go back to work. Jeremy would not participate at all. Sit stoically while massive wars were going on around him. Until he came up with, to him, was a perfect weapon, 2 swimming pool noodles. He hid them behind his computer, and when the Nerf battle started, he came out swinging. He was double Darth Mauling everyone in sight. Not only do these things hurt when used as a weapon, they also cause a lot of collateral damage, especially in the hands of someone oblivious to his environment. The fax machine went off the desk first, backwards behind the table. Next, as he followed another coworker, he was cracking ceiling tiles and knocking them off while in pursuit, ending in crashing a metal shelf that was stacked with electrical and networking connections. It took every employee the rest of the day to get that in order. So the company buys a game engine to try out. We fly the developer from Austria and he sets us up on his secret but near-release engine that isn't public knowledge. Sets us up on several machines so that anyone can use it at work. We just cannot, under any circumstances, redistribute it or he will cancel our legal use. We were advanced beta on this. The day the developer gets back into the office, he finds that there have been multiple attempts to hack into his computers. All signs point to Jeremy, and restriction were put in place so that the entire core was only possible on the boss's computer and internet was restricted to that computer until the smoke cleared. The VP had to take the boss to the airport on a Friday afternoon. I was given instructions to watch Jeremy if he did anything over while the boss was away. The boss had not even so much as gotten into his car before Jeremy bolted with a jazz disc for the boss's computer. I then sat on the boss's desk and made small talk for nearly 3 tense hours so he could not drag and drop the files over. He was fired. Did I mention that this all happened in less than 6 months? Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and the comments. See you in the next video.